Hey, this is Aaron Price, the CEO of TechUnited New Jersey, back with another Ask Member Anything. Today, excited to welcome Brian Beams with the U.S. Commercial Service. He's in Northern New Jersey. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Aaron, for having me. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. So tell people, what is the U.S. Commercial Service?
Structure-wise, if you can imagine an organization chart, we are part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. We drill down into the Division of International Trade Administration, and then below that is what is called the U.S. Commercial Service. We have two bodies or two sides of the house. One is the domestic field, which makes up about 100 offices domestically. I'm in the Northern New Jersey office. And we have international trade specialists and the director above us. And then on the overseas side, it's your U.S. Embassies and consulates have commercial sections. We're in about 70 plus countries. We have about 100 offices globally.
So why would someone, let's start, we're going to go through the whole thing, because I am guessing that there are people who are very unclear on when and how they should engage with your office. So why would someone work with you? What can you help people do?
Good question. We are the trade and investment arm of the federal government. So when it comes to anybody exporting, any U.S. company that has 51% or greater content, that's not just widget-based, that's service-based. They can come to us and we'll help them or hope to help them enter a foreign market. That could be Canada, that could be China, that could be Mexico. We use our free trade agreements as much as we can with our partners. So the other part of the answer is we necessarily don't work with startups in a sense of we're really connectors. Our flagship service or offering is matchmaking. So a company should have some domestic experience selling interstate or intrastate, and then find a market that makes sense. And we kind of help them along with, through that process.
So if I spoke to a woman today who was looking for some help on her candle making business, and she may or may not be large enough, but it's the Wax Cabin Candle Company, if anyone wants to check them out here in New Jersey. If she wants to grow her business internationally and isn't quite sure where to start, would you be the person to call?
Yes, I would start with us. Even before let me first state that our average size company that we help with nationwide is less than 5 employees. So our focus is small, medium-sized companies, but we help all at all levels in that sense. But if they have maybe worked with the Small Business Administration or SCORE, other entities that were kind of getting you up and started and running where you can sell domestically, and then you feel comfortable and confident that your product or service is exportable, as we like to say, then yeah, you should knock on my door or give me a call, and we can step through that process.
I might be asking you an obvious question, but why? I'm just going to use her as an example here, Jen.
Sure.
Why would Jen want to call you versus trying to go direct to the country that she thinks there's an opportunity in?
Great question. As you know, that company can easily, in these days, jump across the pond virtually, as we know, and reach out. They could spend money on that angle, and that's where where we have a niche or where we fit in. You could also, where I'm based in, I'm sitting on the Hudson River and I'm looking at New York. You can jump across and ask, the big four if they could help you export. It's about money. So when it comes to our services, we have a lot that are free. And then we also have a suite of fee-based services that Congress mandates the price. However, if we went into that, or once we have that conversation with the company, they'll understand that it's pretty reasonable. So that's probably the main objective, because not only domestically, but internationally, price points and cost of things are, on the business owners' on mind.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what's free and what's a paid service. So what can people take advantage of for free?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll start with basically there are 4 cones of what the U.S. Commercial Service offers. The first is advocacy and diplomacy. Hopefully nobody ever has to use that, but there are times that we do. the whole process is a free service. But if you can imagine yourself a small company or a large company bidding on maybe a foreign government procurement in Europe somewhere, and there's maybe shenanigans or maybe something's going on, and you realize that it's not a level playing field of the entities that are bidding, we'll come in and we'll, in this case, I would call out to my folks overseas in Europe, explain the problem, and they'll get in touch with the local government and ensure that, again, it's a level playing field. We don't get folks in front of the line. However, we get you in the line, and our hope is, again, to make a fair and smart process take place when it comes to that. Also,
how often does that happen? Like, you said, hopefully no one has to take advantage of this, but obviously it's a service for a reason. Do you find that it's somewhat common that people need a little help getting, to be considered? I'm thinking, for cultural and political reasons more than for anything else.
Yeah, I don't want to pick on any country today. However, there's countries where if you come to me and you want to get into a market, or sometimes U.S. companies come to me and they're already in the process and they're like, Brian, can you help? This is what's happening. We'll do a little nudge to address that and push that through. But I would say when it comes to commerce and international trade, global awareness and how cultures and maybe integrity or lack of integrity in some markets, it happens. And so on and so forth. You can imagine those things are real, unfortunately. But in regards to your government, you have an entity that will work hard to do their best to ensure that there's just a level playing field when you're, for example, bidding for a foreign government tenure.
Yeah, got it. So I cut your train of thought off. You're about to go into another free service. So one is this advocacy diplomacy consideration. What's another free service?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So market intelligence is a big one, and you can go on our website. It's trade.gov. There is a plethora of what we call country commercial guides, where, again, you could lose yourself in them. They're very informative. You don't even really have to speak to me if you just want to check out a market. You can start going down that road. You can also ask us for custom market or custom industry within a market guide. So my folks overseas, where I cover 5 or 6 sectors for Northern New Jersey, my colleagues overseas will cover 2 to 3. They'll be generally folks that we hire. They're locally engaged staff. And so, for example, let's say we want to get into Germany. That person who I'm connecting, who works for us at maybe Frankfurt, the commercial section there, they're German. They've worked in tech. They have a book of contacts, a book of buyers or foreign buyers, and that's how the introductions start on that sense.
Got it.
But a little bit more on market intelligence. There's just the free stuff. There's fee-based products, but then there's also webinars. I've just got done with an export series on documentation where it's the minutia, but however, companies have to prepare themselves and gear themselves to not only understanding trade finance, but strategies of pricing and how to compete. So that kind of all balls up what market intelligence is. And that's the second out of 4 basically cones that we offer. The third and the fourth really blend. Or I should mention one other thing. We do one thing is basically a background check or due diligence report. So not necessarily the folks that are in your junk box that say they want to have hundreds of millions of dollars to buy your products, please call. And those folks, you don't want to call us for those. But if you meet somebody at a trade show or someone when you're traveling overseas and they seem like a legit, maybe potential distributor for you, you can work with us and we'll check them out. We'll knock on the door, we'll lift the hood and kick the tires physically. Now in this day and age, we're a little bit restrained like everyone, but folks should know about there is a due diligence program or service for U.S. companies. So you're not alone. And it goes back to, Aaron, what you mentioned earlier, like, why use us? Well, you're a small business. You might have a website. We hope you do, or a virtual presence. However, at times, the U.S. government can open that door or help open that door for you when you're trying to get into a foreign market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, and this is great information. What are the other? So, four cones: policy, intelligence. I don't know if diligence is a bonus or one of the headlines. But what are the other
It's
two?
really in the market intelligence, but it's like it
Okay.
kind of generally converts into a main matchmaking. And I'll leave that sort of at the end, because where I'll go into now is it is all matchmaking here on out. It's a lot of, like, we're at trade shows domestically. In theory, we're at trade shows and conferences that have an international theme. So as everybody knows in all their industries, there's a good amount of trade shows, either local or across the states. We're at the larger ones. For tech, it's CES, those trade shows where what we'll do, and these are pretty much free services. We'll do two things. We'll do a G2B offering. So my colleagues that I mentioned in those overseas markets, about 70 or so, CES, we'll bring maybe 12 to 15 of those colleagues that cover tech from those foreign markets into what's it, California? Well, CES, I think, moves around a little bit. But anyway.
Yeah, Vegas.
Vegas and so on and so forth. So if you're exhibiting or walking the halls and you're a company and you want to learn more about a couple markets, well, in theory, without flying all around and spending that money, you can go to CES and be introduced to one of my colleagues that have your interests at heart. You'll sit down with them, and it's the first meeting. So it's 15 or 20 minutes, speed networking type scenario, similar. And that's really impactful for those new companies or existing companies that want to get into a new market or expand into a new market. The other part of that is when we bring those colleagues over, which are called commercial specialists, they'll bring a book of their foreign buyers. And this is what's huge. I love my colleagues. They're very good. But at the end of the day, if you're walking the floor and you're a US seller, you could sign up for our B2B service, our programs. And that's simply what you think it is. It's 15 to 20 minutes scheduled, maybe in those 3 days of that show's going on. And we might have 12 markets that we're bringing in when it's commercial specialists. However, sometimes like a solar show, we'll bring in 30, 40 groups of foreign buyers or delegations. And it could be 5 or it could be 500. So in a matter of one show, you could have way too much work to do in regards to it's that are potential. And then the other thing is you'll find out in that trade show through our folks overseas and their foreign buyers if that market makes sense or not.
Yeah.
And that's really big. We do trade missions as well, as you can imagine. We work with partners specifically in some sectors. And then we'll have official ones where, let's say you're a small business and you're in energy tech or something along those lines, and you're trying to get into Africa. We have a Prospect Africa initiative going on with a bunch of different departments in the U.S. government to not only to push U.S. products, but to, it's a two-way street. So to help African countries and companies expand into the U.S. However, again, in a pretty easy set, you can learn a lot about or be introduced to maybe a whole group of foreign ministries if you're selling to governments or their large private buyers by the Secretary of Commerce, let's say, Ambassador Ross. So that portion of how we kind of intercept into trade missions and trade shows is pretty good value add for small, medium-sized companies that just might not necessarily have the funds to get into a bunch of different markets or try a bunch of different markets out.
Do you find, so you mentioned that your average, I believe you said your average partner,
Client.
I don't know if you call them client, is about 5 employees. Do you also work with very large corporations, or do you find they do work with the big 4 and go more privately to figure out their own needs?
Great question. Depending on the market, if it's a frontier market or emerging market, it's any level of U.S. business. We support the big names. As you can imagine who they are. We also have a Privacy Act and other things. So we don't necessarily tell people who we're talking to unless they actually release that. But I can tell you that it's, I have a couple folks in, let's say, Sussex County. It's a mom and pop shop, literally. It's the wife, the father, or the wife and husband and the kids who are grown. They work a pretty neat product in aerospace and defense and safety and security, and they're competitive as any large company, and we'll help them. And in that sense, going back to the other side of it, is large telecommunication companies I've helped get into frontier or emerging markets where they just don't know who to trust, and they've taken advantage of that due diligence program.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Are there certain countries where are there countries that are more friendly and easier to work in than others? If you were growing your own small business and were thinking it's time to grow internationally, are there certain markets you would recommend people look at first?
Yes, Aaron, I truly would recommend. And I say it because I'm trying to save you time and money and effort and aggravation, or the lack thereof. Our biggest trade partners are Mexico and Canada. If you haven't exported yet, try that market or come and talk to us. There's free trade agreements there, right? Less tariffs or no tariffs. And then you can go down the line of the free trade agreements, or countries that are just closer, where you can really have, as you're tiptoeing into this larger pool, you're really understanding, and we're there to kind of shoulder to shoulder or hold your hand as you go through this process. And you're trying, again, kind of segues into our last cone, and it's matchmaking, what we really do. I know it bleeds into what I said at trade shows and trade events. However, we do custom matchmaking. So there's really 3 programs, or 4. I'll mention the 4th at the end. But if you can imagine, we're taking that scenario of that candle company, we're tiptoeing into the pool for you. We don't want to throw you into the deep end. There's no need to do that these days. We'll tiptoe. So if you're unsure of a market, we have something called an initial market check. It's about $300 or so, roughly. And within a couple of weeks, my colleagues overseas in the market that we identified will really respond back to you, and we'll have a conference call, and a report will be sent to you, and you'll learn the pros and cons of maybe why to go or to continue into that market, or why that market might not be right for you specifically. So that custom touch is pretty nice. The next part, or the next service, is what we call an international partner search. And we use acronyms, but I'll leave them out. I've been through the State Department and with the Air Force as well, and acronyms are the same, and sometimes their meanings change. But with international partner search, it's pretty simple. And we know that you have the ability to sell into that market. And let's say you're looking for just a distributor to sell across Canada. Well, we're going to, in this case, no travel is needed for you. And we'll do a 5 to 6 week project where we'll give you, again, an end report. And it will be a list of, and it's just like a traffic light. I've seen them. My colleagues do them very well, color coordinated, where maybe we reached out to 15 potential distributors that you told us would be that perfect one. Maybe it's similar to who you're working with domestically. Well, it'll be 5 red, but with all the contacts, with all the pertinent information, I mean, specifically. And then it'll be 5 yellow, and then 5 green. Well, we want you to really focus on that green because we've talked about you. We provided your literature and your promotion, your one pagers and your website and all of that. And they're interested to speak with you. However, we're not in your industry as you are, how long you might been in business. So just having those 15 names, you could actually go through and see maybe one of those yellow is somebody that you wanted to get in touch with, and they are like a big player in that market. We're fine. We'll reach out to them for you. And that leads into our final our third, and really what we're known for is a gold key. Pre-COVID, the gold key is traditional business. It's, yes, getting on a plane and hopping to a foreign market. It's either Canada or China or somewhere in Africa or Europe. Well, in one day, my colleagues will set up a day of meetings, 4 or 5 meetings in one day, where it's pre-vetted, vetted and pre-screened. And those individuals really want to meet you. Maybe they're 5 distributors or 5 end users. Maybe it's even just to meet ministry level or working level individuals at a ministry where you're trying to bid on a foreign tender. But that gold key, which is $900 for small businesses, at the end of the day is pretty reasonable. And then the final part is what I say Cinderella at the dance. If you're a company that you know that you want to go to a market and you want to just splash down, and maybe and generally it's a little bit larger companies that do this, like medium or larger, they'll do a single company promotion. And really is the embassy or the commercial service in X market will roll out the red carpet for you, help organize one event where you are Cinderella and people want to dance with you. Long story short, the foreign buyers are invited, ministries, local partners in that industry are invited. And really it comes off as a very nice service for the US company who's really trying to make their mark in a market but it's a big splash. They're not just hiring, let's hire a distributor or two. They're trying to really penetrate. But
what's the cost of that service?
So that varies because, as you can imagine, some companies they have a higher budget for what they want to do. So I think for small businesses, it's about $30 an hour, but that will accumulate. So, I've seen them for a couple $100s, and then even the larger ones, the larger entities or larger businesses that take advantage of it, I've seen it for a couple $1,000s. So again, if you're really confident and you want to make a splash and you want to make sure that the local competitors, or maybe no competitors in this sense, hear of you, that's one way to do it.
And just so I'm clear, because that seems like a significant marketing opportunity or relationship building opportunity. You're saying for a matter of hundreds or on the high end, a few $1,000s, you go to plan an actual invite only event. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive.
Where you travel, the international partner search where you don't travel, you really just need a list. That end list for the international partner search, not to confuse anybody, but if we then got into, and this is a good point, let's say we started with an international partner search and it ends up with maybe 4 or 5 folks out of that list that we made up of 15 do want to speak with you and you want a little bit more support, i.e. setting up that day of meetings, we'll help you and we'll roll you right into a gold key. But it's not $900 on top of what an international partner search is about $700. It's just $200 more. So at the end of the day, you're tiptoeing in, making prudent decisions. And then and just by this scenario, for $900, you're meeting five entities, 5 foreign buyers or distributors that really want your product or service.
So one of the reasons we do these Ask Member Anything sessions is to drive more awareness in our community about what various members are doing. I had very little insight into this service, and it seems enormously valuable. And I wonder how unique my story is. Like, do you find that companies are aware of this service? How much of your battle is if people only knew what we were doing, or do they know? And I'm in the minority, right, and they just aren't taking advantage of everything.
No, domestically, have you ever seen a commercial of the U.S. Commercial Service?
I haven't.
That one. And that's a DC thing, I would tell you. But I think my leaders would be like, wow, I wish more people would know. But we organically grow. You'll find us at trade shows. If you go to Javits or if you jump across the Hudson or something like that, you ever see a bunch of flags at a trade show or conference, it's probably us having an international business center. But the U.S. Business space doesn't necessarily know of the U.S. Commercial Service, as, in my opinion, as much as they should. But we're fighting that fight, and we're getting out there. And as I think I was mentioning, where we do even domestic or local shows, like we'll do not only webinars, but we'll do Export 101 seminars. We'll work with industry associations when they have maybe things such as trade. I'll sit down as a panelist, or I'll moderate. I can generate content and programming for industry associations. So we kind of do it all, but yet not many people know of us. But hopefully a good amount of New Jersey companies do know of us. It's just, as you know, in time and space, sometimes they're just running around chasing their tails, and they only have so much time to lift their head up. They're wearing a couple hats. They lift, right? So it's, there's some great companies, or not some, or some could be a big number in reality. There's a lot of good companies in Northern New Jersey. Many of them know of us. We always want more, and a lot of them use us. It's just, when do you do that? And that's what we want to say, because a shotgun approach where you want to is not realistic and it's not successful. But when you do have a market or you want to learn to export again, and you don't know what market to go to and you don't have foreign buyers calling you, we'll help you with all of those things.
So I want to hone in on that question you just brought up, which is the when. What is the right time to reach out to you, and how much before someone is thinking about going international?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you need a virtual presence. If it's either, tech companies have YouTube or some type of account or platform where they're doing their own marketing, so to speak. But when you look at us, we're, not to sound too corny, but we're in your tool belt when it comes to exporting. So you utilize us when it makes sense, and when it doesn't, we'll just tell you that we can't do that, or we can't help you. But if you're a small business up to a mature, right now we're talking business cycles, folks. I know a lot of U.S. businesses all over, and specifically, obviously, New Jersey. There's a lot of, hey, we're a strong small business, and we've been doing it for 35 years, and the majority of them are growing, and they're doing the right things. And then there's a percentage of them where they receive bad advice, and it's like, well, I was told never to export because you don't get paid. Well, trade finance is completely different these days, as you can imagine or know. So those things that maybe our grandfathers and grandmothers told us never to do when it comes to commerce. And I know this sounds a little silly, but I've been in these boardrooms or conference rooms where I've met and we're doing an introductory call or meeting, and the companies would do fine internationally. They just choose not to. So there's not really an if or when, but you do want to have some bones to your company. If a foreign business can't look you up and do their own due diligence on you, then you're not ready to export. That's one way to look at it. But other than that, I mean, come along. I hate to give statistics because sometimes people's eyes roll over, but yeah, there's a lot of folks that sell internationally. But when it comes to purchasing power, 75 or 74% of the global purchasing power is outside of America. So you're leaving 3/4 of potential buyers. Now, obviously, there's a smaller group of that, depending on what you're selling. But you're leaving a lot of folks out that why not? Why shouldn't you sell to them?
Absolutely.
If you have an e-commerce store, or if you're selling online, which many have for many years, that a lot of that is trade. A lot of that is overseas trade, if they know it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a question from Jasmine. She wrote, what challenges do companies typically get in touch with you about specifically? And then we started getting to this, but how long does it take to resolve an international challenge?
So in regards to diplomacy, let's take two examples real quick. Let's say someone calls me and you just started having commerce relationships with a foreign entity, and they're a distributor. And a couple months go by, and then you give them terms because you have to compete. And U.S. businesses don't necessarily like to give terms or something along those lines because of maybe prior experiences. However, you do give them terms. And then maybe that individual, and this is rare, but maybe that individual that you're partnering with overseas or selling to doesn't pay you. And it's 60 days now, or maybe 90 days. Contact us. And I'll call my colleague in that market, and either that commercial specialist who's at the front line, or what we call a commercial officer is your commercial service diplomats, right? They're your men and women that run the commercial sections inside your embassies and consulates, all the way up to the principal commercial officer or the ambassador will step out and knock on the door or knock on that local government's door and say, hey, we're representing XYZ. So this could be all cleared up in a day or two where, wow, that wasn't paying me. And hey, commercial service knocked on their door, and it happens. I don't say the G word, the guarantee word, but many times when we support you and knock on the door, not to disrupt a relationship, but to find out what the miscommunication is and to ensure that relationships or the relationship should be of this one-time purchase or ongoing, can stay and be fruitful for both parties.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to make sure we're going to wrap in a moment, but we talk a lot about products, real widgets. for those watching who have service companies, especially software companies, I want to make sure they understand that this is a service available to them as well. What can you do for those who are selling software and services?
Good question, Aaron. We get this question a lot. It's the same services that I went over. Those matchmaking services, the market intelligence content that is either fee-based or that's on our website, and due diligence, all of that also, it just cones down into the same support that we would give manufacturers or widget-based companies. So if you're a service-based company, yeah, sometimes, and you've gotten this selling domestically, that it's intangible. There's competitors, and sometimes it's pretty techy or pretty hot, in the weeds type stuff. We're still going to help you out, and we're still going to mine that or crack that nut in that market of who you're trying to look for. We'll do our best. There's probably no entity has a 100% success rate. However, try us out because of the reasons why we just spoke about. And like anything, conversation, communication, clear, open, and to really know who and what we are and who we help and why is really what we offer the U.S. business owner. Awesome.
Well, I really appreciate it. I think it's noteworthy that with such a polarized election or country, that we're on the eve of with tomorrow's election, regardless, a very positive experience you can have with the government through Brian and the U.S. Commercial Service, because it sounds incredible. And I mean, regardless of however strongly you feel about whatever candidate, whatever issue, this is absolutely a service that businesses should take advantage of. It seems like a fantastic value, tremendous opportunity in ways you can help people grow. So I really, really appreciate that. For those who want to specifically get in touch with you or the regional office, we have scrolling across here, learn more at trade.gov. If they dig through the menus and contact their local person, will they find you, or do you want to give away something specifically?
If you have a pen and paper, you can my email address, or since it's your, I'll even give my work cell. It's the cell is 862-23.
Yeah. 23. Go ahead.
5267. So 862-235-5267. You can email me, which is quite normal when it comes to.
You might regret this, Brian, but we're putting them up.
It's
all right. What do you got? What's the email?
And then also Brian, so BRIAN.Beams, BEAMS @trade.gov, TRADE.gov. And if I could, there's one entity that provides a lot of support that we partner with, and it's the New Jersey District Export Council. Folks could go on there and learn about, they're just a group of great people, businesses and service providers that work in the exporting and also importing world. So they can help you on that a little bit, but their website is njdec.org. So njdec.org. And then finally, those services that I mentioned, there is a small business grant program called STEP, STEP. The state of New Jersey offers this, the Business Action Center. They're a great team located in Trenton. So if you're interested in reimbursement of any of the services I mentioned, the $900 matchmaking or the initial market check of $300, or if you needed custom market intelligence that costs $200, $300, $400, $500, those services are reimbursed by the small business program, the STEP grant. Again, that is administered through the states. The state leadership. So in this case, the New Jersey, I think it's Secretary of State, but Business Action Center.
Awesome. I'm so glad you brought up those resources. As you mentioned them, I brought them up on screen. So for those of you who didn't catch it, you can rewind and pull up all these resources. Really, really great to have you on the show today. Appreciate all that you're doing for businesses in the region, and just thrilled to have you part of the community. Thanks so much, Brian, for joining us today.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.